All Indiana Politics is your premier source for Indiana politics, focusing on issues that matter to you.
I still want us to be the best in the Midwest.
We can't afford another lockdown.
Give the citizens of this country the relief they need.
Education in the state of Indiana remains priority number one.
In-depth, nonpartisan coverage.
We don't know exactly where the economy will be in January.
People are worried with good reason.
Exclusive interviews with Indiana's political leaders.
We have the resources here in the state of Indiana to care for those who are in need.
Expert analysis on critical legislation.
We need to reform those laws.
This recovery is going to take some time.
We've got to anticipate that there'll be a budget shortfall.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network.
Good Sunday morning. Welcome to another edition of All Indiana Politics. I'm Phil Sanchez. Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy made the rounds on Capitol Hill to discuss their Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE. They met with House and Senate Republicans. They want to cut $2 trillion from government spending. Renee Marsh tells us how they plan to do it and the challenges.
Your money is being wasted, and the Department of Government Efficiency is going to fix that.
Elon Musk arrived on Capitol Hill Thursday toting his young son on his shoulders. His co-chair for President-elect Trump's Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE, Vivek Ramaswamy, arriving separately for the billionaire duo's meetings with Republican lawmakers.
Now we're just talking about the art of the possible, kind of the metes and bounds of things that we can do quickly, things that will take a longer time, require enabling legislation.
House Speaker Johnson setting expectations for the meeting.
This is a brainstorming session.
Musk and biotech entrepreneur and former Republican presidential candidate Ramaswamy have been vocal on social media about where the government waste is.
There's a lot lower hanging fruit in terms of waste, fraud, abuse, error, program integrity failures that you got to go after first.
But Thursday was their first real strategy session with Republican lawmakers about where to start and how to cut Musk's goal of $2 trillion in spending, something budget experts across the political spectrum say is virtually impossible. 70% of federal government spending, not including interest, consists of payments to Americans for programs such as Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and more. If those programs are spared, experts expect dramatic cuts to programs like food stamps, home heating assistance, housing aid, food safety inspections, and infrastructure.
Everything is on the table.
On X, Ramaswamy has mused about clawing back billions in federal loans and grants that the Biden administration is dispersing at a rapid clip to cement his legislative legacy, including a key loan to EV startup Rivian, a rival company of Musk's Tesla.
Do you support clawing back federal funds that the Biden administration is pushing out in these final days?
They're spending money, in our view, recklessly. And so, yes, we've had a lot of discussions over the last couple of days about what our authority would be to claw some of that back and to stop it.
It's the first time the two men were seen publicly for their joint mission of streamlining the federal government since CNN's K-File uncovered past comments of Ramaswamy calling Musk a puppet for the Chinese Communist Party.
You have no reason to get Elon. Don't jump like a circus monkey when Xi Jinping calls in the hour of need.
The pair will become regulars here on the Hill. Thursday's meeting is the first of many to game out how to dramatically shrink the U.S. government.
The future is going to be amazing!
Well, a program that's drawn millions of federal dollars to Indiana could be on the Department of Government Efficiency's chopping block. ITV's Tim Spears reports at least one Indiana congressman is concerned about a program that's channeled tens of millions of dollars to the Hoosier state.
Some call it hard work. Shane Riddle calls it a second chance. He started his job at Recycle Force in March after being released from prison.
Immediately, I got a job right off the bat. I've been able to get my license back through the programs that they have here, housing. I've got so many certificates, I can't even remember how many I've got since I've been here.
Every employee at Recycle Force is an ex-offender. All of their job training is paid for with federal funds.
I'm all for government efficiency, but we can improve government efficiency without cutting programs that Hoosiers rely on.
Indiana Congressman Andre Carson said he's concerned the same funds that paid for Shane's training could be a target for cuts by the newly announced Department of Government Efficiency, or DOGE.
I think to cut these programs, while it may further their agenda optically, it's going to hurt my colleagues' constituents.
Congressman Carson helped secure $1 million for Recycle Force job training last year, along with $5 million for the Market Street reconstruction and nearly $5 million for the Indianapolis International Airport Master Plan through community project funding, which used to be known as earmarks. Over the last 2 fiscal years, House and Senate earmarks have directed $24.4 billion of spending nationally, including nearly $60 million in the Hoosier State.
The role of government is different from the role of business. The role of government is to provide services for the people and to provide a social safety net.
Entrepreneur Vivek Ramaswamy and billionaire Elon Musk, which will lead DOGE, have promised to reduce regulations and significantly cut federal spending, though have mainly focused on reducing the federal workforce. Carson said he wants to see discussions focused on a fair tax structure while maintaining government services.
Looking at ways in which we make the government more efficient is a conversation I'm welcome to participate in, but I don't think we should or can do it on the backs of everyday Americans and everyday Hoosiers.
In Indianapolis, Tim Spears for Wish TV, wishtv.com, and follow us on Facebook for updates.
Well, Indiana Senator-elect Jim Banks is defending President-elect Donald Trump's nomination for Secretary of Defense. The former representative met with Pete Hegseth in Washington, D.C.
Fully support him. President Trump wants Pete Hegseth at the Pentagon to clean up the mess, especially that's happened over the last 4 years. And Pete is focused on what I'm focused on, which is getting wokeness out of our military and get our military back focused on what it needs to do, which is train to fight and win wars. That fighting spirit back to our military. So a very positive meeting. We talked about military recruitment. Right now we have a military recruitment crisis. And I think a lot of that stems back to what the Biden administration has done to advance political causes in the military over the last 4 years. And I hope to be on the Senate Armed Services Committee come January as a new senator from Indiana. And I'm going to do everything I can to back up Pete Hegseth at the Pentagon to clean up the mess, get the job done, get our military back focused on what it needs to be focused on. Pete doesn't back down from anything. That's what I admire about him. He doesn't back down from the media. He doesn't back down from the bureaucracy. He's not going to back down from China, Russia, and Iran, our biggest adversaries around the world. And that's what's most important, that our enemies will fear the United States of America once again with Donald Trump and Pete Hegseth doing their job. So he has my full support. I can't wait to vote for him and move forward and get the job done and clean up the mess at the Pentagon.
Governor-elect Mike Braun, meanwhile, has nominated former state representative Mike Speedy as Indiana's Secretary of Business Affairs. Speedy operates a multi-state real estate development company headquartered here in Indianapolis. He served 14 years in the Indiana House, where he chaired the Financial Institutions and Environmental Affairs committees. Braun will keep a familiar face in charge of the Indiana Department of Education next year. Braun confirmed that he has named Dr. Katie Jenner to continue as his Secretary of Education. Jenner would be the first member of the Holcomb administration to serve with Braun. Governor Eric Holcomb appointed her to that post in 2021. The governor-elect also named David Adams to be Indiana's next Secretary of Commerce. Adams most recently served as the state's Commissioner of Workforce Development. He will be responsible for driving economic opportunity for the state. Braun says that he plans to restructure his state leadership team to more closely mirror the cabinet used by presidents. Coming up, the Supreme Court hears arguments in a historic case that could impact the lives of transgender teens. Welcome back. The nation's highest court has heard its highest profile case of the fall. Supreme Court justices dove into the issue of transgender rights. The court heard a challenge to Tennessee's ban on gender-affirming health care for minors. Julia Benbrook details this case from outside the Supreme Court.
Last year, Tennessee Republicans voted to make it illegal for transgender youth to be prescribed certain medications or treatments for gender dysphoria, including puberty blockers and hormone therapies.
It was just purely political. It was, let's use these poor kids and these families as a pawn. And we just want to be able to take her to the doctor.
In a challenge to the Tennessee ban, attorneys for the Biden administration and 3 transgender youth and their families are arguing for the justices to declare the state's law an unconstitutional form of sex discrimination.
This is a law that bans medical treatment only when it is prescribed inconsistent with an individual's sex. Our argument is that that treats people differently because of their sex, and therefore the court has to treat it like all other forms of sex discrimination.
The state's lawyers argue that lawmakers were justified in restricting this type of medical care for people under the age of 18.
The law imposes an across-the-board rule that allows the use of drugs and surgeries for some medical purposes, but not for others. Its application turns entirely on medical purpose, not a patient's sex. That is not sex discrimination.
A growing number of state laws targeting transgender care have been enacted in recent years, with a particular focus on minors. Though the community makes up a small fraction of the American public, it was featured prominently during the 2024 election.
Kamala's for they, them. President Trump is for you.
Reporting in Washington, I'm Julia Benbrook.
Well, the court's conservative majority appears ready to endorse the Tennessee law banning gender-affirming care for minors, with several key justices questioning whether the issues should be left to elected lawmakers to decide. The court's decision is expected by July of 2025. Coming up, Indiana's best political team debates President Joe Biden giving a pardon to his son after the break. Welcome back to All Indiana Politics as we welcome in 2 members of Indiana's best political team, Republican Allie Bartlett and Democrat Dana Black. Let's start with a story that's drawn so much discussion this week. President Joe Biden granting a pardon to his son Hunter. Dana, we start with you. Was this a good idea?
Well, I think the bad idea is him vehemently saying that he wouldn't do it. But guess what? He changed his mind. I change my mind about things all of the time. And the last time I checked, there was only one person who was not convicted of a crime that received a pardon, and that was when Ford pardoned Nixon before he was convicted. Every other pardon has been of somebody who has been convicted. So I ain't mad at him for pardoning his son, who was the target of a political attack anyway. I say go ahead, pardon your kid. I'd have done the same thing.
Allie, I'll let you respond on that as well.
Yeah, so I don't disagree with Dana's point that the bad idea here was Biden's advisors ever telling him to commit so publicly and so many times to not pardoning his son. I think actually the statement he gave, he definitely could have played up this sympathy angle. Look, he's my son. Of course I'm going to do this. I think there would have been something to say for that. But the fact that he totally went back on his word, I think that's ultimately going to be harmful to his legacy. And I will say everyone should look very specifically at the language of the pardon, because this covers a span of 11 years, just about, going back to 2014, when all of his activities that have come into question in the past related to board membership that's come into question, relations with China, and all of these things also that tied in President Biden. That is very interesting that they chose 2014 as that date, and they referenced crimes he has been convicted for and may or may not have committed. That is a very broad pardon, and I think that's part of the huge issue here.
Dana, I'll let you respond to that. Hold on, and just also the possibility of this tarnishing Biden's legacy as well. Go ahead.
I don't think it will tarnish his legacy, but until people get upset about Saudi Arabia giving Jared Kushner a gob of money and nobody's investing it, I am not ever going to be upset about Joe Biden pardoning his son, because that's a real thing that we have not decided to look into. So if you can't get upset about Jared Kushner getting a gang of money or his pardoned father being named as an ambassador, then y'all should not get mad and feel like Joe Biden's legacy is tarnished.
Yeah, a lot of shenanigans going on both sides, no doubt.
Exactly.
We now hear that President Biden, though, may be considering sweeping pardons for members of his cabinet as well, again, under the idea to protect current Trump critics from future prosecution. Allie, I'll let you go on that one. Your thoughts, and will this actually happen?
I mean, I think you kind of set the precedent here with President Biden going back on his word about pardoning his son. It's kind of a free-for-all at this point. I will say that what he's talking about doing here would be unprecedented. And, you know, for all the criticism that the Democratic Party laid upon President Trump for the way that he ended his first term in 2020, what a way for Joe Biden to go out. I mean, setting precedent with this type of pardon, a preemptive pardon for people who haven't even been investigated of a crime at this point, it seems pretty crazy. And the bigger concern for me would be what kind of precedent this is setting for the future. I mean, are we really going to just say that this is now a free-for-all and the presidential pardon power can be used however they feel to bow to people's political whims at this point? And the preemptive nature of that for people who haven't even been investigated, that's extremely problematic in my view. Whether or not it will actually happen, I would hope not. If they are at all concerned about his legacy, which maybe they aren't at this point. I don't know. They did throw him right under the bus and replace him as the nominee. But I would be giving some serious thought to that.
Dana, should the president do this? And doesn't a pardon typically suggest guilt rather? So should people like Dr. Anthony Fauci, Merrick Garland, and Pete Buttigieg, accept them if offered?
Well, so the precedent that's being set is that the incoming administration has basically said, we're just going to start investigating and locking up people who disagree with Trump. That's the precedent. And so this president is saying, we got a bunch of nuts coming into the administration and taking over the White House, and they're taking over the DOJ, and they're taking over the FBI, and they're coming after people who criticized Trump. Not that they did anything wrong. So the precedent is being set of, hey, we're going to just go after people who have done nothing wrong. So I don't know. I still don't understand how the preemptive pardon would actually work. But why are you going after people who have done nothing wrong other than criticize you? See, that's the precedent being set that nobody's really talking about.
Allie is shaking her head.
Can I chime in on that real quick?
Go ahead.
Because if we're going after people who have done nothing wrong, even if we go after them all the way in a court of law, if they've done nothing wrong, then there's nothing for them to be convicted of. So I don't think that justifies any of this.
Do you actually believe the man who says, I am going to lock up people who disagree with me, that the courts are going to save him? The Supreme Court just gave this guy a blanket immunity to do whatever he wants to do. All he has to say is this person is a security threat, and they'll go lock him up whether they've done anything or not. And that is the danger that the Supreme Court said. That's the precedent.
He has seemed to suggest that a couple of times, Allie. Go ahead.
But that's not how the criminal justice system works. You can't do that. You can't do that even if you have immunity. Immunity doesn't apply in this situation at all. And so
you assume that the basics that we already have in place
are
systems that we have in place
by the Biden administration. It's a dangerous precedent to set, no matter how you look at it.
We could probably do a half an hour on that.
She's saying that like the systems that we have in place are going to hold, and I don't think that they will.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens. Let's turn now to President Trump's embattled nominee for Secretary of Defense, Pete Hegseth. There are growing indications that the nomination may be doomed because of allegations of drinking, financial mismanagement, and sexual assault. Indiana Senator-elect Jim Banks supports him. Dana, do you think that the Senate will confirm Hegseth, or will President Trump have to replace him?
It just depends on how strong their spines are, honestly, because the Republicans in the Senate bend to the will of Trump on a regular basis. But aside from all of the drinking and the sexual whatever, what qualifications does this man have to run the entire Department of Justice? Because he's a veteran? That does not mean you are qualified. The fact that he is even being nominated is laughable. This man has absolutely no qualifications. That's why he should not be confirmed. But I don't believe that the Republicans in the United States Senate have enough of a spine to stand up against this horrific pick.
Allie, I'll let you weigh in on this one as well.
Yeah, well, I would love to know what qualifications outside of an Ivy League education, having served our country, you're looking for in a Secretary of Defense. I think that he will be confirmed because he is a great pick for this office, and he represents a lot of what the Trump administration is looking for out of the Department of Defense. And they're looking forward to taking back our Department of Defense to where it should be as a sign of strength throughout the entire world. Look, I think that one thing I'm really sick of in the year 2024 and beyond beyond is people being able to make baseless accusations with absolutely no proof. We saw the similar thing happen to Justice Kavanaugh when he went through his hearing. And so what we really need to focus on is that there will be a thorough FBI background check conducted on all of President Trump's nominees, which will bring about factual information.
Quickly, yes or no, both of you, does Hegseth get confirmed? Allie?
Yeah.
No.
No, okay. Well,
no, and I have to say this, though. She talked about Kavanaugh. Now on the right, they're literally saying Justice Brown is not qualified, the Harvard grad clerk. It takes more than a Harvard degree.
Unfortunately, we are out of time. Always good to see you both. Love talking with you. We will talk soon once again. Good to see you. We will be right back. Thank you for joining us for All Indiana Politics this week. We'll be back here next Sunday morning at 9:30. Have a great rest of your weekend.
From Wish TV, this is All Indiana Politics Podcast on the All Indiana Podcast Network. Watch All Indiana Politics live Sunday mornings at 9:30 on Wish TV and at wishtv.com. Subscribe to this podcast and listen weekly here on the All Indiana Podcast Network. And be sure to discover even more great podcasts at allindianapodcastnetwork.com.